Hello, welcome back. This is a supplemental video for episode 10, the finale, The Black Queen for House of the Dragon. As you probably know, I was not here last weekend to discuss it with Linda to record because of
They
course,
probably noticed that you weren't sitting there.
yeah, they probably noticed. I didn't turn invisible all of a sudden. I was on mute, I guess.
Yeah.
But I was in Spain for an event. I was kindly flown there by the municipality of Cáceres, the city in Extremadura in southwest Spain, which was kind of the base for filming in Spain and actually served as King's Landing in a number of scenes. So that was very cool. I spent the weekend there. They had invited, you know, fan sites and content creators from across Europe. So to be there, La Garde de Nuit from France, Los Eterrenos, our good friend Javi Marcos from Spain, a number of other vloggers and Twitch streamers like Evil Smile, if you know him from Spain, and Stefan Sassi of the Boiled Liver podcasts. Egg de la Cittadella and
That's Italian, right?
Yes, Federica from sort of Italian side of the fandom. I'm sure I'm missing people, but basically a lot of people, even somebody quite famous from Mexico, Jag Duran, who I saw. I didn't actually get to say hello. It was so busy, but it was really lovely. It's a beautiful city. I am my family is Cuban in origin. We had Cuban dining customs and cuisine is not that similar in some ways to Spanish. But whenever I'm in Spain, I feel like I've come to some sort of my ancestral homeland. Andalusia and Extremadura, the way people eat just works for me. The breakfasts are delicious. They put me up in the 16th century converted palace in the hotel. It was very beautiful. I ate very well, very well. It was very good that I walked everywhere. So I walked quite a lot the streets, and it was just amazing. I mean, I
was never survive living in Spain.
I was just wandering around, and I recognize this place. This is a square where Aemond and Kristen fought Eric to get a hold of Aegon. Yeah. I judged took part in judging a costume contest. One of the most popular was when someone came out as King Viserys, hobbling on his cane. The whole crowd cheered, and suddenly there was a cosplayer dressed as Daemon, and he came up to his side, and then everyone else came up to his side and helped him up.
Awesome.
Yeah. It was great fun. I'm very sorry. I know you are very jealous. Linda's very jealous.
He kept sending me pictures. He kept sending me pictures of all the historical sites. He kept sending me the pictures of the food.
Oh, the food. Oh,
yes, I love Spanish food as well. I've really grown to love that, even though I'm pretty sure there's no Spanish ancestry. There's just Vikings on the side.
Well, the Vikings made it to Spain.
Oh, it's true. So they absorbed some of it, I guess. But yes, I was at home taking care of Winter and Lancelot and being driven crazy by them, mostly by little Lancelot, who is an extreme firecracker of a puppy, who's probably going to disturb us during this video.
Yeah, you may actually just be able to hear him. He's gnawing away on a piece of horn right now.
Hopefully not the network cables, actually.
Yeah. So, what else? There was a panel that I took part in. It was basically the only official event I took part in. Was a panel discussing House of a Dragon and the impact on tourism and basically discussing the show a bit, and that was good fun. I believe there was a live stream. I think Javi from Los Eterrenos will be posting them up on his website as well. Although the problem there is that while we spoke in English, it was about microphones, and there was a Spanish translator who translated simultaneously. So unless someone does subtitles, I think probably if you're only Spanish speakers need apply. And there were some issues with translation on occasion. Not the fellow's fault. He wasn't a viewer of the show, so sometimes he misunderstood a term. I think at one point someone had said Viserys Targaryen to him, and he didn't quite understand, and he said Viserys Targaryen. And caca in Spanish. There was a lot of laughter. He did a fine job. Yeah. After a rough start because we weren't sure quite how to do it. There was a concert from towards the end from a sort of Irish band who did the Game of Thrones theme and so on, and then we lowered the banners, kind of officially the City of Dragon banners. The idea is, what the city councilors told us, is they hope to have the event again next year, around the same time. They had over 700 fans from across Spain, and even people from outside of Spain showed up to partake. They said that they think it's the largest single Game of Thrones event in Spain or in Europe that's happened. I can't swear to it whether that's true, but I can't think of anything similar.
No, I can't think of anything else. So.
And I did actually manage to record a podcast after the episode because Stefan Stassi of Boiled Lever actually invited Javi and I to talk with him about not Javi, sorry, Matteo Barragala, who is a academic, and he's somebody who's helped work with the Wildcards website with George's team. He studied George, and he actually helped create the George R. R. Martin sort of academic studies network. So we talked about the episode, and that has been released on the Boiled Lever Patreon, and I believe eventually it'll go public. So Boiled Lever is great. Stefan and Shanti Collins, who I think he's one of the best voices discussing the novels and the shows. You know, I don't agree with him on everything. It was very funny seeing his reactions to the Reigns of Power, because some of his reactions are like, well, that's how we were reacting to the show. In any case, so all that preamble, I had posted some stuff to Instagram, some photos, I think a video when we actually were up in a little sort of piano bar where some of the musicians had gathered to jam, and the lady who was organized. Because strange enough, besides Cáceres, the reason that Irish band was playing was that they were there for another event that was actually happening right after, which is for a whole week. Cáceres hosts the largest Irish music festival in continental Europe. So I am told. They will have over 100 musicians and bands performing over a week-long period. Started on the 22nd, ends on the 30th. Apparently on the 30th, like, everyone who's there will kind of jam together and play together. Very cool. So check the Instagram. It's Instagram at Westeros.org. I think I posted something to Facebook, Westeros. Possibly Twitter for some things. I don't know. Twitter got very busy with The Rise of the Dragon. That's the big news. That book is now out. Most places.
Yeah. And I'm very amused to see that you've spent time in Spain again, and your arms are moving a lot more when you're speaking.
That happens. I get infected by the very active ways.
Should you take a moment, by the way, to investigate the extremely strenuous chewing, by the way?
It sounds like porn, but we will, because I think now
because if it is the network cable, it would be awkward.
So, but then when we come back, we will start talking about the episode and
yes, the things that I sort of didn't get off my chest when I'm just here talking on my own. It's easier when you do
responding to the comments, so your corrections and things that people point out. Huh?
Right, so like I said before, we had to investigate the sounds coming from the adjacent room.
They're still coming. I think you're going to be able to hear them, but there's nothing we can do. No. It's that or, go to war.
Yeah. Otherwise he will be in here and all over us.
So we found our own order of, like, Boxerkeepers.
I'm not sure there's anyone who's up for that job, to be honest.
What can you do? He's a puppy.
He's a puppy, and discussing the episode on my own when I'm used to sort of exchanging views and, kind of bouncing ideas off you, it always feels like you don't quite get everything out there. And obviously, while, I consider myself pretty well versed in all the details, I can't compete with Elio. That's just a fact. His brain just doesn't have room for much else than the Song of Ice and Fire fact. So
I was laughing at him. Yes. He's a... Oh, no.
All right, a little incident, hopefully averted. Well, a little incident happened. A little got cleaned up, and now we'll see if they can stay calm for a little while. Like I said, it's always difficult to discuss an episode on your own when you're used to exchanging ideas and bouncing ideas off each other. It feels like you don't quite get everything covered in the same way that you would with the usual exchange of thoughts. And so we kind of ended up seeing the episode separately this time and reacting to it separately.
Yeah. Pretty similarly, I think. I mean, there's just a couple of points, I think, where we differ, but it's not like a huge difference. I mean, we both liked it, I think, right?
Yes, I mean, I
as an episode,
I like it as an episode. There are issues with how they reach certain points that I still have issues with how they reach certain points. There are elements to, I mean, again, I talked about this in my overview of the episode, that I have issues with Rhaenyra's arc similar to the ones I have with Alicent's arc, and she arrives at the point at the end where she's clearly very obviously willing to go to war, and it makes for great TV. But, you know, I'm always going to be the person, but why don't you just do it more or less the way it's written? Why don't you stick with... Because some of it is... And I think we'll maybe get into this a little bit more in our overview, or we do broader comparisons. There is a limit to how far you can say that it is... but there's room for interpretation in Fire and Blood.
There are limits. I think some people go too far. Like
nothing is set in stone.
Like, what's the point of having the book, basically? If
then you can doubt that, were these people even involved? Were they called the names that they were given? Were they the ages that they were?
That goes too far. That goes way too far for me. But at the same time, it's clear, we've always said, like, not everything is set in stone. It's just, for me... to be faithful, because I've been repeatedly assured this is very faithful. We're trying to be very faithful, and I can see how compared to some other adaptations out there, it is very faithful. There are adaptations.
I mean, you could compare to the Wheel of Time.
Yeah,
for example.
I mean that's a great example. Actually, it's very faithful compared to the Wheel of Time. I'm guessing it's very faithful compared to Rings of Power. I haven't watched Rings of Power. I've just seen the reactions.
I mean,
online.
You cannot. There's no way for Rings of Power really to be faithful, given that it's there's so little material.
And I mean, they had some huge challenges. Like, yes, we're gonna they weren't gonna find a bunch of Dutch actors to play the Minorians, right? A bunch of 6'4" plus people.
Why do they have to be Dutch?
So there's a lot of things that they can't visually convey.
No, but I'm talking the time scale and everything.
Yes, no, but I mean,
and just the fact that they have to make up so much.
Yeah. No. So, but I came kind of like two conclusions in the last days, especially in Spain, like talking more with other people. I was like, and I see Spain is making me move my hands around. One is that I would say that the show is not as faithful to its source material as the first season of Game of Thrones was to its source material. There were changes there, but for the most part, it was really like a real attempt to get really close to the text. This one, every time they make a decision, I saw Sara Hess. I don't know why people are jumping on her so much. Everything that she says, some of it may be her interpretation as an individual writer, but everything that happens on the show and the episode she wrote, Ryan Condal signed off on those. Right? These are not things that she came up with on her own and they just slipped by him. He actually very properly came out and said, like, he doesn't understand, like, 85% of the episodes were basically written by him and Sara Hess. There's a lot of stuff that you guys love, but Sara Hess wrote.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I guess the main thing is the whole admission, like, what if there's a dragon coming out of the floor?
It'd be cool, yes. I mean, that does, I can see why that
don't justify things for, it would be cool.
That really, that one bothers people, and I understand why, because we just really felt that Game of Thrones lost something when it became more and more like,
wouldn't this be cool?
Wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be spectacular? And the spectacle started taking over the story from my perspective, anyways. But anyways, and the other thing I came to conclude is, like, because some of the things they've done make it so impossible to really see certain aspects to be at all faithful. I mean, look, there's no way that making Alicent and Rhaenyra the same age can be faithful. to the book. Like they are not wrong about the relationship, but they were 9 years apart.
It is a complete reinterpretation. Nothing to do. This is not some sort of conspiracy by the chroniclers too.
Yeah. And similarly, I mean, I know this is going to be disputed by some, but the prophecy playing such a central role to this, central role to how tortured Viserys was, how motivated Rhaenyra is by it's a duty I have to fulfill to serve the realm. That stuff is an invention that comes from a seed of an idea, a kernel idea that is true, but the importance of it has been vastly amplified by the writers, and that is fine. But those two things made me realize.
I mean, my current guess is still that I don't think it went past, Aegon and Visenya.
I think probably. My personal take is Aegon thought he fulfilled it, and that was it. Like it was sorted out.
Yes, we're supposed to conquer, and Targaryen is supposed to rule Westeros. Okay.
Yeah, that was my take. Now they have a different take, I guess, about it, and maybe this is George's take. I don't know. We haven't spoken to him about it, and these are one of those things like I wouldn't talk to him about because I don't want to be spoiled.
No.
But these two things made me realize this isn't like an alternate history. This is not a faithful rendition of the account. It is not an attempt to weave together an objective version of what is described in Fire and Blood, because what is described in Fire and Blood cannot happen in this show canon because the characters' ages are wrong, their motivations, the relationship, which is so central and very well done, but so central to the story of the show that it's an alternate history. It's an alternate history where the characters were born in the same year, more or less, where they grew up as childhood friends, where the prophecy is something that's been handed down, where Aegon didn't think, I solved it, where he's passed it down from one to the other.
But I think we'll maybe leave most of that for if we are doing an overview video, which I think we will try to do, and I guess tie back to this episode. I mean, I think, like I said, it does end very, very strongly.
It's a very, very strong ending.
There are elements left out of the ending, and obviously where the ending is reconfigured, which we'll get to. We'll cover some more changes that I didn't get into, which make it a very different scene. Of course, Daemon's not supposed to be there, as we're going to touch on.
Yes.
And this is not the definitive moment that launches the war. Well, I mean, it does say that the war of like ravens and diplomacy ends, and the war of fire and blood starts.
Yes. But we'll get into
but everyone was committed to to the conflict already.
Yeah.
So that's the change. They kind of merged those two together. But I think we'll get into some more of the details of the overall adaptation on the overview video. So we'll go on with I had a little correction to make for my video, which was that I think I said that there were 3 of the Baratheon daughters present. Boros had 4, but actually there are 4 of them. I missed that one was standing with Aemond, the one that he had picked out. We didn't get to see if he picked them by kissing all of them, which I think was Mushroom's claim.
Mushroom wasn't actually there, so...
no, but, Mushroom knew everything anyway. It's the truth, although I think he passed on kissing the sharp-tongued one, Morris, who is the one who goads him into going after Lucerys, which we don't.
We don't know if that actually happens or not.
No, well, it seems... I suppose the Lucerys has left, so yes, we don't know. It could have happened afterwards, but we aren't shown it anyway. Right. But we also have some changes that I didn't get into in so much detail. Again, I need my extra brain here, and...
So, additional changes. One of the ones that Liz did not cover actually is the crowning and the timing of that in relation to the offer of peace from King's Landing. In the book, it's actually her crowning that triggers the peace offer. It's when the news arrives that she has crowned herself in response to Aegon having been crowned. But they say, oh, well, we should try to avoid bloodshed. And also, I guess Rhaenyra sends a response in the book to this offer. We have yet not seen what her response is to Otto's. That's, again, they were covering a lot that episode. I can understand why they kind of skipped it, but it's a bit weird. Like, we're told, I'll give you the answer on the morrow, and then we don't see what that's supposed to be.
So I mean, their timeline changes a lot. Obviously, they wanted all the green stuff in one episode. They wanted all the black stuff in one episode, and I touched a little bit on the whole thing with the sort of the different phases of the war. You've got the diplomacy phase and the war of fire and blood, which starts in earnest with the death of Lucerys. Technically, the first strike of the war is done by Rhaenyra's side, even if it is a bloodless strike, because when she sends Lucerys and Jacaerys to the Vale and to Storm's End with their, looking for allies, at the same time, Daemon goes to Harrenhal on Caraxes to establish a foothold on in the Riverlands, because that is deemed crucial, and they touch on that. The Riverlands will be crucial.
Right, because actually what we do see 3 dragons go, but it's actually...
Meleys going to patrol the Gullet, yes. So they don't do... Because they want Daemon on Dragonstone, so he doesn't go to... He mentions it.
Yeah.
Going... that the Riverlands will be crucial, but he doesn't actually get around to going. So there is no real war there. I mean, it is the first strike, but they give up immediately, and he takes it without any bloodshed. So they probably leave. That probably happens a little bit before Lucerys' death. If we think the distances
are about the same.
It depends on which dragon is fastest. The young ones fly fast, but Caraxes is not at the age where he's big and lumbering exactly. Yeah. So it could have more or less happened simultaneously. And he doesn't return to Dragonstone either to deliver the news of Lucerys' death. He sends a letter with... A lot of people obviously wanted the lines of that letter in the episode. An eye for an eye, a son for a son, Lucerys shall be avenged, is what he writes to Rhaenyra on learning the news.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that whole thing plays out. I have a feeling that the histories have it wrong. But we'll see. We'll see what second season brings. There's not much of a change. It's a clarified detail, because I think there were questions about whether a child...
I mean, I thought so when I first looked at it, like, this doesn't look quite normal, but then, like, I looked at it several times, like, is it just, like,
covered
tried in blood or something? And I mean, the midwives react with horror, but then on the other hand, they just saw Rhaenyra like pull a child out of herself, and it's obviously dead.
Yes.
So it's much clearer in Fire and Blood that she has a deformed little dragon baby.
Right, and we have from David Peterson, the language creator who created High Valyrian for the show. He's been posting all the Valyrian for each episode, some notes, and I think that this episode actually had 2 pages of notes, because one is the song that Damon later sings, but one is also like additional dialogue that they didn't use for Rhaenyra in High Valyrian, where she actually literally says, one of the lines, and he said, like, they didn't use them, and they were multiple versions of things that she might say, like, if they wanted to use one of them. They weren't certain what they were going to go with, but one of them was literally saying, she was born an abomination. So that's clear, but at least the ambiguity is sort of ours. I think also I saw an article where someone said that fans had been looking at it really closely, and they thought they might possibly have seen the stub of a tail as well. Certainly the back and head looked a little strange, and then mottled in a way that kind of looked like scales, but not, because the arms were and legs were normal.
They looked normal, and I just thought they were going to do more with it.
Obvious.
Because of the change in Laena's death, because in Fire and Blood, Laena dies delivering a deformed child, or she's left gravely ill, after she lost a lot of blood and all of that, and then dies trying to go to Vhagar to ride her dragon a last time. Yeah. She does not opt to do suicide by dragon.
No. So but why do that if they...
So we thought that was part of the reason that, okay, they didn't want to repeat the birth of the little, dragon human crosses or whatever they are. Now that just makes it even odder that they went for that choice with Laena, which again we discussed it, which seems so selfish in a sense. She doesn't know that the child is going to die. And she decides she knows that she's going to die. She certainly knows she's gonna die if she gets roasted.
It's the Dragon Rider's death thing. I'm not. It's not. I'm not my happiest about that whole thing. I think a lot of people weren't as well. Although I see more people, I guess, concerned in general. Oh, childbirth being used as a traumatic thing. For Valyrian women in particular, it does seem to be quite traumatic. I mean, when you're possibly occasionally popping out half-dragon children, it seems to do a lot of
because
damage.
mostly Maegor had one as well.
Yeah.
Now,
yes, whether poisons were involved in making it happen, whether it was his.
Because his wives weren't Valyrian, of course.
No, but
those.
One was, but yes, the one who gave birth was no.
No. The ones that had the... So, whether this is something to do with the supposed mixing in of dragon genes with human genes...
Or just proximity to the dragon eggs and dragons and such causing some sort of effects, magical effects.
Dragon radiation is a thing. Dragon radiation.
I don't know about that idea. I mean, I know it's a theory, and to me, the magical Chernobyl and things like that, it's an interesting analogy, but I'm not sure about it, but it's a possibility. I mean, it's as possible as the dragon genes occasionally cropping up too strongly.
Yeah.
This is not. I mean, the changes is that yes, the use of the prophecy.
I mean, we talked a little bit about it already in the overall, so maybe we don't. But I thought that in this episode it was further emphasized. The change in sort of Rhaenyra's attitude to being a ruler, because we have her at the start talking to Luke, who's sort of doubting that, I shouldn't be inheriting Driftmark, I get seasick, and it wasn't really mine to inherit, and gets into how Rhaenyra sort of reacted to her own inheritance, and she says, you have to, I learned that you have to earn it. And it's such a modern thing in a way, and to me it feels like they're trying a little too hard to make her into a monarch that is this responsible monarch who's she's doing it for the prophecy, which is for the good of the realm, and she doesn't want to start a war to rule over ashes and bones. She wants to be responsible and take care of the people.
Which is a nice callback to the Mad King, of course, that line.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they're using things in a very good way, but it is this idea that somehow it seems they're trying to sell in monarchy to a modern audience, rather than presenting these people as characters who believe that it is their, not divine right or right by blood. It's like, this inheritance is mine. I don't have to earn it. I was born to it.
Yeah.
And don't you go taking it away from me.
I find it, yes. I mean, George does have one king who takes that sort of more modern approach. It doesn't go well for him. That's Aegon the Fifth, who has a very different upbringing than what Rhaenyra has. Yes, I do find it a little odd. I find it a little silly to kind of do this thing. To me, when I was talking...
It's like they think that the audience cannot empathize with an absolute monarch of, a historically, more historically accurate absolute monarch who believes that it is their right.
Yeah. To me, when I was in Cáceres, when we were doing a talk, and we just touched on the prophecy and what I feel is the overuse of it to motivate action, I felt like the show ought to be comfortable with having a woman go after something because it is her right, it is not her duty, and not something that some dead man 130 years ago prophesied, like, oh, well, this will be your duty and you should do it then. Like, she should be doing it out of the hubris, out of the desire, out of the ironclad belief that it is hers by right. To me, anything else, again, moves this into this is like an alternate history that is faithful in the broad outline, but it kind of completely changes the context of things. And it's very good as it is, but I do wonder, and it may be the other thing we were discussing this is that I realized that this is what Ryan Condal and his writers team believe is the most interesting take they can provide for a modern audience of this material. This is the most interesting take that they came up with. Other writers probably would have had different approaches, as we even heard from George, how there were different starting points and how they were going to focus the story, where some writers wanted to start like right with Viserys' death, others thought, Aemond's death should be the start. George wanted to start way back with, starting with the heir and the spare with Aemond and Balin and their sort of love and rivalry for one another. Very different.
It would have been a very long lead up.
Yeah, very different approaches. And that means that, this is an interpretation, this is their take, but it's moved for me from like, it's trying to be what Game of Thrones was in its first seasons to, which is a pretty faithful, Karth and some other aspects aside.
Karth wasn't the first season.
Well, second season.
Yeah.
What Game of Thrones tried to be in its early seasons.
Yes. It tried to follow obviously it has a much more traditional plot in the sense that it's much more clearly laid out what the plot is. And I mean, they differ right away on some characters. I'm not going to get into Cersei again, but yes, Cersei. It differs a lot on some of the characters. What I will say, of course, is that I think that House of the Dragon is quality-wise in looks and such capturing Westeros much better from the get-go.
Yeah.
And it's perhaps in look and feel a better show.
Yes.
Right away, but
part of it is budget.
Part of it is budget.
And production values.
And just learning.
Yeah, but another part of it is I think Ryan's visual image of Westeros as a person who was a long-term fans of the novels long before the TV show existed. He probably looked at fan art and he looked at the art in limited editions and the calendars, and that probably shaped his vision of what it should look like. I've discussed it with people, like there were choices where they were going more like, this needs to be more fantasy. Like they moved away from the magic and so on. But I put
in the looks,
the clothing in the veil for the women looks really kind of weird and fantastic. The Eyrie looks very weird. This weird dome on pillars and so on.
I mean, generally they wanted to move away. Oh, it's not really history; it's fantasy.
Yeah.
So they wanted to divorce it more and more from the medieval roots. And here, people look more. Looks much more like a, some sort of medieval drama. It's obviously not perfectly. So some of these reactions are things that we're able to flesh out by having seen interviews and such. I generally like to do our videos not being informed by too many reactions from other people and so on, explanations from the showrunners in the inside of the episode. But in this case, it kind of makes me a little more concerned, and that now we know from Ryan as well, not just George saying that he expected Daeron to be in, but that Daeron, the fourth son of Viserys and Alicent, will be in the second season.
Yeah, the character guide, the official character guide on the HBO has actually added him in like a day or two ago as well. So.
Whereas they were kind of dancing around in season 1. I mean, his dragon doesn't get named. They say that the Greens have 4 dragons.
You see the bloodline, but
you see the bloodline.
Don't know if it continues. You don't know. I mean,
we kind of started speculating that some of the softening of Aemond's character was because Daeron wouldn't be in, or possibly in preparation for maybe not having Daeron. They were making Aemond a little bit more learned, a little more well-mannered. Daeron being the courtly, gallant fellow.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder even more about the accidental death. Yes, I know that, Ryan Condal said that, well, if you go out chasing somebody on a big murder machine...
I mean, he's culpable. I mean,
he's absolutely culpable. It's not like, oh, no, sorry.
If he hadn't done that, it wouldn't have happened. So, I mean, as far as that goes...
But what I wish they had included, at least, is that he would have made a death threat against him.
Yeah.
At the very least, then there would be that evidence against him too.
Yes.
That he had a murderous intention. Now, maybe it's not in character for him to make a death threat if he's not actually going to go for it. I don't know. We will see how they play it out. I hope they don't go too far with rehabilitating the character further in season 2, but I mean, first when I saw that it was an accidental killing, I was
I didn't have that reaction. I mean, but maybe already in the back of my head, I was just thinking, like, this is an alternate history.
Yeah. I mean, the sequence is fantastic. There's no question about that. It is a fantastic sequence.
Ryan is really good at this sort of thing. I think I said it when I was talking on the other Boiled Lover podcast. That, I mean, he started his early scripts were kind of action things. A lot of his produced things are action kind of focused films. And I think you can see in the pacing and sort of the roller coaster of emotion of it. The whole thing is a very well done action sequence. I think someone else mentioned that there was a homage or something there, but I can't recall who it was. But anyways, it was
the Star Destroyer.
Oh yes, it was, as the director Greg Yates said that he wanted the image of Volgar going over. This keep going, just like when the Star Destroyer appears in A New Hope, and it kind of comes over the audience's head, and this keeps going. So I thought they're very successful, very good stuff. I would say for me, like it's a point I guess we talk with the other bit, which is like, the dragon's not obeying. Like the part of the issue is that Arax, after being chased and feeling trapped, I guess decides, well, what does a dragon do when it feels threatened? It attacks.
Yeah.
So it didn't attack, and then try and listen to him to try and get away. But that caused Valgar to then go on finally ignore Aemond. I have no problem with it per se. I feel like
I would have preferred it if, obviously, they wanted the tension and the setup. I would have... Now I'm moving my hands too, Jesus. Infected.
No.
No. I would have preferred it if the attack from Valgar was more immediate. Now Aemond is given a bit of time to get Valgar under control again.
You know what? I don't have a problem with the idea of this ancient dragon. Once it's made his mind up, it will take a lot.
I mean, certainly, we never see any examples of anyone committing to a fight with a dragon and then deciding halfway through, no, I don't think we're going to do this.
Never
that
happened.
said, the instances that people have brought up as examples of dragons disobeying...
It's very few.
I kind of disagree with the usage that people have put them to. So this is our reacting to some of the comments that we've seen on the episode.
Saying...
this is like,
normal.
The whole thing with, Viserys saying that the dragons were a force that we shouldn't have meddled with, they're too dangerous. For the most part, it's not a problem. Now, if we start from the beginning, the earliest example would be Alysanne and Silverwing,
right,
who refuses to fly over the wall with her. Well, duh.
Yes.
It's the dragon is trying to obey her.
Yeah,
but can't. It's being repelled by something.
Yeah, the wall. The magic in the wall that is there to protect it from
unnatural creatures passing.
Yeah.
Yes. Which may support the idea that, I guess, creatures of magic in general, possibly created creatures of magic.
Well, or whites created creatures of magic, or men reanimated. But obviously, anywhere magic is involved, magical creatures.
So Silverwing cannot obey.
Yeah.
So that one doesn't count.
Then there's Arya and Balerion, who, when she mounted the dragon flew off for more than a year, and it came back with big scores on its side, and Arya died a horrible death from some worms in her body. Now, Septon Barth speculates that maybe she wanted to go home, and meaning King's Landing, because she had been fighting with her mother, who had stuck to Dragonstone and didn't want her to go away. Well, maybe Balerion, the only survivor of Vadum, went to its home. It went to Valyria.
Phone home.
It went to Valyria, and or possibly there's another thing. Arya was a very lively, spirited girl, and she, there's a quote where she wanted to go for Lyssa Farman to go have adventures and explore the world. So maybe she actually said, "Let's go away somewhere."
I mean, I imagine this 13-year-old girl decides to
12 actually, I think, when she took the dragon.
Yeah, decides to try to have Balerion as her dragon, and he accepts her as a rider. I think your first instinct, if you're that kind of person, would maybe go off and let's have an adventure, and then if she didn't give him specific instructions where she wanted to go, if she just wants to have an adventure, explore the world, and he decides, I'm feeling kind of homesick.
I guess the only question that remains then is like, why? I mean, something goes wrong because it takes more than a year for her to come back. I can't imagine why she spent a year having getting adventures.
Well, I mean, we
something
don't
has to go
know.
wrong.
They could have been flying around for a bit first, checking out other
He can't have
things.
starved to death. Like, they must have landed. She must have eaten. They must have.
Yeah, I'm guessing he hunted for her.
Yeah, but we've seen this, of course, with Drogon and Dany, which we'll talk more about, where she's left and he's just flying out and around and ignoring her until suddenly he doesn't. So that's unclear. I don't think necessarily Barth's idea that the dragon just ignored her is necessarily true.
And obviously, we see that Valyrian is injured. Could he have gotten injured and they were stuck for a while?
Not impossible. Then the other one is Dany and Drogon.
Yeah.
Where that one's several times. Now, we theorized it because the way Drogon arrives at sort of key points and acts at certain moments. It
kind of feels like he's hurting her somewhere.
Yeah, it feels
like I'm okay with if you're going in this direction, but if you're going in that direction, I'm not with you.
Dragons are creatures of magic, and does that mean that they have a sense of prophecy of
what needs to happen?
Destiny?
Yeah.
So when Dany decides, she takes out her rabbit ears and jumps down, Drogon accepts her as a rider, and off they go flying. And then when she's left in the Dothraki Sea and he's hunting and so on, she has this thing where she realizes, I'm not made for peace. I'm a conqueror. Conquest is my destiny. And then he shows up on that to ride her after days or weeks of having ignored her, and off she goes to her destiny. So I don't know. I think I guess you could say, maybe the dragons knew that this was the destiny for. But I don't want to go that far. I don't want to go like they're causally. Like Drogon was born under unique circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, this is a special case. I said Dany and Drogon is the only one where we see actual disobedience.
Yeah.
You can't count Silverwing for that, and we don't actually know what happened with Rhaenyra and Valyrian to assume that there was any disobedience on Valyrian's part, rather than, they got stuck somewhere, she got into an adventure that she didn't...
I guess technically it was more disobedience of dragons. This is obviously when the Myronese tried to take hold of a dragon that she sold to them. But that's, a dragon is not a slave, and that's a very different... They're not bonded.
They're not bonded, so...
But yeah, so to me, I don't really have a problem with this idea that the dragons...
That you could lose control in a fight.
Yes, I don't have a problem with that. But you can, especially when you're young and experienced writers.
Yeah.
Or it's, you're someone who's writing an ancient dragon that probably is...
knows a bit more about fighting than you do, for one thing.
And also just might not be as willing to accept your commands, or is more particular about its, self and its
possible. But yes, but I didn't like these examples being used to justify it.
No, I don't.
And what it leads into is that we have these two mistakes, or rather, we have the Alicent's misunderstanding of what the Viserys is saying, and then we have the disobedience by Arrax and Vhagar starting the dance. I don't feel that these are objectively bad things, as in you can frame a story like this, that these series of unfortunate events sets off this horrible war.
Which is not, to me...
But that's not the story. It's such a major change of the framing to go to that well twice.
Yeah.
Tonally, for me, that really changes things.
This is, that was a really good one. I feel when that point was made, but it is a really big framing difference of this conflict, and this is,
we had people trying. Because I had mentioned this to you when we were talking, and then you pointed out an article that brought up the similar...
I think it was Den of Geek, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Who said that it was a mistake.
So I'd already been on that, like, feeling that the two sort of unplanned actions leading to the war was a problem. But also the... and now I lost my thread completely. Let's see if I had put in another note for that. Let me see. What was I saying? I was saying that the Den of Geek article
talked about the mistake, basically, with using a mistake.
Yes, that's right. And then there were people commenting on that, saying that, oh, this is like a Greek tragedy.
Yeah.
And it's not, if you're meaning that this is like dramatic irony or tragic irony, because I actually looked that up to see if I could use that to discuss this, that they were reframing it as sort of dramatic irony, but that's not true, because dramatic irony is when the actors do something that the audience knows is going to spell disaster. So when Oedipus marries Jocasta, not knowing that it is his mother, the audience is going, oh no, you're marrying mommy!
Yeah.
And you don't have an idea, and he thinks it's fine and dandy, it's solving a problem. So that's not really the case here. But it is reframing what are instances of, as you put it, instances of hubris as just mistakes instead.
Yeah, I do agree. Again, this is I'm more and more kind of wedded to, like, this is an alternate history. The broad outline's the same, because one of the things I've always said about adaptations of like George's work is I don't necessarily want the writers to think they know better than George, and that they have a better angle on the themes of the story. I think the themes of a story, George, they're there. It's about hubris and ambition and the doubt and the death of dragons. It's not about patriarchy, and it's not about the impact of prophecy of whether we have free will or
that all the male chroniclers are maligning the female characters.
It just gets,
they're maligning everybody, or
so it's faithful, but in a kind of like, it's an alternate history where things fall out quite differently. The context is quite different. The themes, the narrative themes around it that we're creating are quite different. And again, I think they think this is the most interesting story they can tell. And I'm not the writer. George was involved in the process, so to what degree he's on board with these broad changes, like.
He doesn't sign off on everything, though. He has stressed that several times. He has no creative control. He sees, the scripts and everything, and sometimes he asks them to change something, and sometimes they stick with what they wanted. And
I think Ryan, what he said best. Ryan was really good. Where he said in an interview, one of the recent ones, that what the commitment he had to George is that whenever there's a change that he wants to do, he will talk it through with George. And he will hear his side of it, and he may change his mind or not, but George will always have a chance to be told and to hear about it and to discuss it, and maybe to suggest some other way or some reason why we shouldn't do it. And then, so I think that's good. That's great. I think that honesty is really important, and I think this also helps set expectations about how faithful it can be going forward, because they're saying, like, we are. To me, like, one of the things that really bugged me most about Game of Thrones as it went on is that, like, they kept talking about George as the master storyteller, and we're so faithful, like we can't do better than him. And then you kind of see, like, well, they do think they can do better than him, and they start changing more and more. And maybe on some occasions, for a lot of people, they were right. Like, what they did was better subjectively, than what was in the book. I don't know. I can't speak to it, but to me, there was practically nothing where the only places is, like, at the margin, like, okay, they had Rakaro and Eerie having a relationship and having some. It was interesting to see. These are part of the stories that you wouldn't see because George has a point of view structure. You wouldn't see them.
Yes, I know. I know that you liked Theon's point of views in the second season. Is it? We're seeing
they added some added material there that was really good. So so to me, like, it's easier for me to, like, again, and I mean, our first instinct is, when we talked about this show, people were asking us whether we were going to watch it, and I said, we don't care about it as much as we do A Song of Ice and Fire. It is a loose narrative. We can still be disappointed by changes and things that happen, or we're feeling like, oh, we're doing things that are, like, look, the evils of patriarchy thing is very much front and center in a lot of fiction right now, deservedly, perhaps so. but I think it's a little heavy-handed in this one. I think because again, to me, it's about agency of characters. Like the patriarchy made me do it, Allison. That is, to me, it kind of removes some of her responsibility. The prophecy made me do it. That removes some of the responsibility from Rhaenyra. I would prefer that they were just ambitious people who believed that they were right, not because other people told them that you had to do this, but that they believe that they had the right. That's what I prefer. I think that would make a good story regardless. I mean, Tony Soprano did not justify what he did because of the patriarchy, how he made him do it. Although you can say, certainly, he grew up to be who he was because of his relationship to his mother and his father and his family and the people around him. You are
maybe it was a prophecy then.
Yeah, no prophecy ever. Well, you can never be a football player. That was a prophecy that worked out. Yeah, that was pretty accurate, I suppose.
But no, I think that there is more room for these sort of characters in fantasy as well, and even the ones that are the protagonists. I mean, I'm sure that we will start seeing in season 2 some very negative sides to Rhaenyra. I should sincerely hope so anyway.
Yeah,
but I think. But on the other hand, what bothers me there is the fact that I see reactions on Twitter and so on where people say, oh, well, everything she does now is perfectly justified. And basically, so they're simplifying the narrative into that, oh, well, it doesn't matter what she does, I'm going to support her anyway. Well, fine, I support and support, I think she's the rightful heir, completely. But I don't think she's a good person. And people seem to want her to be a good person, and they want her and Daemon to have some sort of storybook romance.
They really just should have killed Rhaenyra. I think if that had happened, it'd be a lot easier to kind of swallow some of his stuff.
It would be. It really would be.
I mean, it would be this horrible action. And the chroniclers don't suggest he had any role in it.
No.
But them doing it, we really thought at first, oh, wow, this is really bold of them.
Yeah.
It's going to be very polarizing. And then, I don't know. I'm happy with the episode as an episode. I'm happy with the show as a season. I don't think it's good I don't think it's as good as the first season of Game of Thrones. As such, it doesn't. But also it's much harder to do when the first season of Game of Thrones.
It is because we're covering a massive amount of time.
It causes certain choppiness in the story.
Certain choppiness and restructurings that have to be done to fit the material
in.
The
main cast and halfway through the season. So I think given the challenge they did, that was a handicap for them. So I think it got. I mean, this last episode got really close to some of the highs of the first season for me. Like Baylor was a big one. So we'll see. I think I liked it, and I think I am very much looking forward to the next season.
No, I am too. But
I have to wrap my head around the idea that it's. And I know they have gone the alternate history, but for the very first minute, it's an alternate history.
Yeah.
So I have to give it the leeway of that. Like even I find like some of these tropes that they're using, some of these themes they're using are being overdone and overpushed right now. It may be that they were just trying to keep the thread going across 20 years, so they have to keep bringing it up. And maybe now in the second season, the prophecy will fade back a bit, and it'll be the business of war.
Perhaps I can agree to give that leeway that maybe it will be less heavy-handed from now on. I find it much harder to accept the alternate universe because it just makes things not very neat. This is a reason that I'm not a comics fan.
Yeah,
I absolutely hate alternate versions of things that are supposed to somehow be. Things have to be neat and unified and fit together for me. I have a very OCD brain in that regard. The only settings where I accept alternate universes are when they are built into the setting and can be explained that way. So I can't use that to make myself feel better about it. But I think that if they're less heavy-handed with the patriarchy and the prophecy, then I think it will sit better with me anyway.
So now that I've concluded, this is another turning of the wheel, I suppose.
Oh my God! Yeah, exactly.
This was the cope for the wheel of time. It doesn't make sense because the turning of wheels, you don't all get the exact same
I
names.
mean, Danny did go on about breaking the wheel, so they did get confused already about which setting we were in.
It's been a very good show. I've enjoyed it, and we will discuss it more, I guess, as an overview as we kind of go over some of the.
Yes, I think we actually went over already a lot of our thoughts of the
season.
The season as a whole, but so maybe we'll do it more as looking at.
Maybe just like listing some top things we liked and some of the least things we liked.
Yes, and perhaps trying to structure the timeline a little bit and give some more insight into the timeline differences, if we can do that in an orderly fashion, just to help people orient themselves and how exactly they change things around. Once we've made sure that our darling Lancelot is nice and calm, and we have some time to do that.
Yeah, no, we're very happy we got the puppy right when we did, but on the other hand, it has posed some challenges for getting these videos out, and more so as the dark, cold winter proceeds, and he gets cooped up more.
And he's growing, and he's gaining energy by the day.
Yeah. So again, Rise of a Dragon is out.
Oh yes. Shall we bring our little bookie?
Yes. I got to see the French edition of it.
It's very pretty.
It's very pretty. It's got a lot of wonderful art. Very happy for a lot of.
And I said, I think possibly today or yesterday on Twitter, that I'm really happy that I'm seeing a lot of reactions to the art, because we've really seen this as an art book with text. In a sense, that's how we've thought of it. Yeah, we
thought of it that way. I mean,
because the text, there is no new information.
Very tiny little trivial information.
Yes, so like, if you've read Fire and Blood and that's good for you, and art doesn't matter, then you don't need it unless you want it looking pretty next to World of Ice and Fire in the bookshelf. But it really is for the art, and there's lots of very cool art in it, and we had some fantastic artists that we got to work with, and that was the most interesting part of the job.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I love the fact that people reacted positively to things like Joshua Kairos's. I'm very sorry, I'm getting my nose is getting a bit stuffed up.
Yeah, you brought something home from Spain.
Yeah, I did. His depiction of the older Visenya, which was beautiful, and I thought it looks very personal. And he revealed that in fact he had his grandmother model for Visenya. Beautiful photo, and people were like, oh, it's lovely. No one ever shows these Targaryens in their old age, mostly because they didn't make it to their old age. But and Visenya in particular, I don't think has really ever been shown in her old age before.
No.
And for me, it was like that was our idea. We suggested it, and Anne and Rhea approved it. They liked it, and it came out really well. Yeah. So a lot of this stuff, we had a real hand in sort of determining what is depicted. Yeah. So I think that was really cool to be involved that deeply in it, and.
Yes, and I mean, working with the artists, working with the great team of, Anne and Grohl and Rhea, who's
Caitlin Ketchum, and the art team that they had. And...
That was a great experience, and because condensing the text was a fairly, just more straightforward work, really.
Yeah.
And not the same as The World of Ice and Fire, which was a bit more creative in how to frame things and how to frame the information that existed, whereas here it was a matter of presenting a shorter version, sometimes more streamlined, more in order version of Fire and Blood, to make it more easy for reference. And like some people have said, you can find things more easily by you look up the art, and then you know where you are in the timeline, basically.
I mean, Doug Wheatley had great illustrations of Fire and Blood, but there were fewer compared to the page count. I mean, as George, I guess, said, the word count is about a quarter of Fire and Blood. And we just condensed down a lot and streamlined it, basically, so that we could present it as concisely as possible and make room for all this art. So I'm really happy with it.
And perhaps I'll take the opportunity here. I know some people got very upset with me when I said that George, basically what he wrote for this was his name on a contract, which is obviously, I mean, he wrote this text already.
Yes.
Why should he write it again?
Just to condense it. No, that's not, yeah.
We worked with his team on it. It's not like we pulled this book out of our butts. Man, that'd be uncomfortable. Actually, the uncomfortable part would be getting it in there in the first place.
Everything here this exists because of George wrote Fire and Blood.
Yes.
This exists because he created the material that we were able to work with.
It's not like we created anything. No. We put the words in this order.
Yeah.
We put George's words in this order, but it would have been an enormous waste of time, and that's what I responded to, people complaining that why is this book being created when George should be writing The Winds of Winter, and it would have been such an enormous waste of time for George to condense his own material, and I'm pretty sure he would not have wanted to do it, because that's one of the most tedious things you could ask a writer to do, is Absolutely. To write the same material again, just in a different form.
So, so I mean, and also, as you said, George did clarify some points. There are a little bits of new information that he clarified for us. He sent us his notes on dragon colors, so a lot of the dragon colors, and some of the depictions of dragon flames. I admit we did not manage to get every artist to get it, but George imagines that dragons' flames don't look like normal fire. They have colors like Valerian had black flames, and Mark Ciponetti does a great job depicting that. So some of the artists managed to get that across. Some didn't. Some didn't because George hadn't decided what the colors were for some of them. So they did standard fire. So to me, we've been very happy with it. I think it's worked out very well. And again, George had a role in it, mainly by writing Fire and Blood, but also by just overseeing it and making sure that his people were kind of working with us and him to kind of make it look how he wanted. And I think he's been very happy with the result. He was remarking on the art in his talk. He was talking about the Great Iron Throne by Urtash Octanos, who just did some magnificent cover. He's been amazing. He did a real hero. He did I think 20 pieces of art out of over 150. So we've been very happy with it, and we hope fans will be happy with it for accepting it for what it is. This is an art book with some text in. Hopefully we'll be able to talk more about it in the future. Maybe we'll look at some of the pieces of art. Maybe we'll talk to some of the artists. That would be kind of fun to do that. And I guess our next video will be kind of that discussion of this whole season, I guess.
Yes, and I think we'll take some questions as well in that.
So if you have any questions, anything you want us to talk more about, any thoughts you want to share, please just comment, and we'll take down notes on them, and we'll do that. I mean, should we do? I mean, I was about to say, should we do something like a live stream kind of thing? We've done that before. We can do it now. However, the puppy has to play along, and that's hard to schedule. So maybe we won't do that.
That could be a little difficult unless we want to have Puppy Mania on live. So
until our next video, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much if you've picked up Fire and Blood. I hope you liked it.